Hello, I'm Somi Arian. I'm a tech philosopher and the founder of Impeak. My guest on today's podcast is Matt Medved, the co-founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of NFT Now, an award-winning Web3 media platform building the future of tokenized media. It turns out that Matt and I also have some common backgrounds in music and several other areas. This was a fantastic conversation on many aspects of tokenized media, which I'm sure you will enjoy, especially if this topic interests you. I was just saying that I came to NFT NYC. It's a shame we didn't get to meet in person there. And it was, just New York was not quite the same. But what's your assessment these days of what's happening in the, at least in the NFT scene? Because I wasn't there for NFT NYC last year, but a lot of people who were there, they were telling me that it's really shrunk, that it was like much smaller. So well, as somebody who runs a project or a company called a web, NFT Now. So what's your assessment?
Look,
Yeah.
right now, NFTs and digital assets are very much tied to the crypto markets. And as we know, the crypto markets are very cyclical, right? This past bull run that we saw from like 2020 to 2021, that was actually my third crypto cycle. So, I've definitely not my first rodeo, and I understand how these things work. It's like, usually when like the mainstream attention and the media coverage and the like biggest crowds are happening is usually towards the top of that. And then you have to go and it's all boom and bust, and then you go into kind of the bear market where the noise kind of recedes, the crowds recede a bit, but what you have is the core, which continues to grow, of true believers and people who really believe in the future of the space and are here for the right reasons in terms of wanting to build and the like. And so it was interesting because, like you said, NFT NYC felt a little quieter this year, certainly, but a lot of people that I spoke to told me they actually preferred it because they were able to get more in-depth real connections. We had our flagship event for NFT Now. We do the NFT 100. This was the second annual NFT 100, where we recognize 100 of the leading most influential creators and also leading community figures in the space. And we host that each year at the Rainbow Room in Rockefeller Center. If I'd known you were in town, I would have extended an invite. You'll have to come to the next one. But it was a really, really special evening, and it's a really, really special gathering. And what was interesting is, while it was still a great event, people spoke to me afterwards. They said, actually, Matt, like, we kind of preferred this year to last year. And I was like, really? They're like, yeah. They're like, last year, felt like there were a lot of people who were there to be seen, which is, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of galas and big events, stuff like that. But they're like, but this year it felt like it was even more of like a deeper community tie. And like, the people I was speaking to, like, I really bonded with, and like, I got to meet a lot of people who I had not met before. And I was like, look, that's something that I think we're seeing at like a macro level, is that, the people who are still here, the people who are showing up every day during a bear market are usually the ones doing the coolest shit, for lack of a better way to say it, right? Like, those are the people who really are thinking about innovation, who aren't letting like the ups and downs of the market cycle cloud their vision. They're not, in it for the shiny objects and the short-term grabs. These are the people who are actually building the future. And what's funny is, if you look traditionally at the past few crypto cycles, the biggest technological breakthroughs and innovations and developments that have kind of dictated the bull markets were often developed during the bears. So like, like all of the infrastructure and frameworks we're seeing around, like the marketplaces that we saw really lead the charge with the NFT space, like OpenSea and Nifty Gateway at the beginning, like, those were built during the bear market. DeFi was created during the bear market, like, like those protocols. And like, so right now is actually, it's funny because it's like right now is actually a great time to be showing up and paying attention and being and like well versing yourself in the space. And that's something I learned from navigating these cycles. And so, like, quieter doesn't always mean worse. And so I think we saw that on display, certainly at NFT NYC. Where we had the NFT 100, and we also had our Now Pass community event. The Now Pass, I'm sure we'll chat more about that, but that's That's the our access pass to the NFT Now ecosystem. And what was really special there was bringing together a ton of people who we only knew via Discord, via Twitter, via etc. And the energy was great and the vibes were on point. And like that's another thing too, is like one of the things I kept hearing from people after leaving NFT NYC was that the vibes in person, like the IRL, it's all like great energy and excitement and like conviction in the space and what we're building. And then you go to Twitter and it's all like doom and gloom, bear market, like the market's down or all this. And there's a funny disconnect there because when you're in the space day to day, you get to speak to amazing artists, you get to speak to amazing builders, you get to feel that energy every day and day out. I don't take that for granted. I think I'm very lucky in that regard. And so what we are often trying to do with NFT Now is find ways to bring the greater public and the masses into that and help them understand, like, this is the future. Digital ownership is not going anywhere. And while it may not be as popular to talk about NFTs right now, they are going to fundamentally shape and redefine how creators in their communities create and share value together.
100%, 100%. It's interesting. You said that NFTs are currently still pegged to, map to, is that the word that you use?
Yeah, they're tied. I think it's tied to
the crypto market. So that means that you think that in the future they will not be. Is that what you're thinking, that eventually it will separate? Because in some ways, when you look at it, you could say that the NFT community is the degen of the degens.
Well, I think that it's going to take time, but the answer to that, I think, is yes. I think what we're going to see is the markets mature, and what we're going to see is a lot of like micro economies of scale start to rise. And what we're going to see is one thing I've been saying for a bit now is that one of the reasons I know that we're still early is that people tend to think about NFTs as a category rather than a new medium that transcends every category. And what's interesting is we saw, obviously, over the last bull run, we saw the, use cases like digital art and digital collectibles drive a lot of mainstream attention, market volume, obviously, like, those eye-popping headlines like $69 million sales and things like that. But they're really just scratching the surface of the potential use cases for this tech. I'm looking at a lot of really exciting use cases, such as NFTs and tokenization of media in the media space, in the TV film space, literary NFTs like poetry NFTs. Our poets are starting to finally build a collector base, which is really exciting in the same way as that empowered digital artists. I'm looking at also more mundane use cases for this technology, like government documents and like titles to your car or to your home or health records and the like. And so like one thing that's really clear to me is that because like it's still so nascent, the market penetration is still so small, we tend to lump all these things together when like, a piece of art is quite different from a membership pass. In our case, our membership passes are also pieces of art, but that doesn't always have to be the case, right? And people tend to sometimes expect they bring the same consumer and they almost expect the same consumer and creative priorities in each of these different categories, which, like, if we think about it in the IRL world, right, the pre-Web3, all that would be ridiculous, right? Like, the person who is going to buy a fine art piece is not the same person who is going to buy a Soho House membership, is not the same person necessarily who is, collecting rare baseball cards or the like. And so, like, there's different creative and consumer priorities at play here. It's just so early that a lot of people are painting them with a broad brush. And so as we mature, as we go forward, we're going to start to see these different categories have their own economies and markets, just like they are in the pre-Web3 world. So, for example, like, no one ever says like, oh, like lifestyle is down, right? It's like, you don't even necessarily say like fashion is down, right? You'll be like, oh, like, Gucci's doing great, Bugattis, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can break it down further. And that is actually like, that I think is where we're headed, where all these different categories, digital fashion, by the way, is one that I didn't mention, but I think is going to be absolutely super exciting to watch. Blockchain gaming, the GameFi, all of that. these are all massive, massive industries. The fashion industry is what, 1.7 trillion. Gaming is absolutely massive. Like, these economies are going to start to stand on their own in the digital space. And it's going to become inaccurate to say like, oh, NFTs are down today, or like, oh, like, but that's going to take time. That's going to
Yeah,
take time. We're
100%.
still very early.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there will come a time, especially with everything that's happening with AI right now. Um, I think people are gonna need to find a new way of finding meaning.
Yeah.
And I think that digital ownership is something that is going to contribute to help that kind of create a new way of people finding meaning. Digital ownership and developing ways for owning digital assets. I think that that's something that is going to be increasingly part of how we redefine the way that we find meaning and purpose. Do you have any thoughts on that? Have you had any observation on what's happening in the AI space and its
Yeah.
relation to NFTs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm continually inspired and fascinated by what's happening in AI. Actually, just today, this is a little alpha. Just some today, NFT Now published its first Twitter thread entirely written by GPT-4, based on one of our writers' articles. And we're going to be continuing to like really expand into like AI, automated automation of like content processes and generated content, and like, to me, it's it's not people need to worry about AI stealing their jobs. It's humans who know how to use AI, I think. And for me though, I actually don't think I'm very much an optimist when it comes to it, because I see it as a new creative tool and a new way to like automate things that otherwise didn't necessarily require a lot of creativity, or a lot of like it was quite tedious, and the like, and allow creatives and storytellers to focus on the more important elements of that. So I'm actually really excited about how it's playing into this. It's going to be really interesting to see the intersection of it in Web3. We're already starting to see it. There's actually an amazing artist named Claire Silver, who's
Yeah,
kind of at the forefront there. We had her on the NFT Now podcast last
yeah,
year, and she actually really opened our eyes to the power and possibility of AI when she told us that, in her eyes, AI is a camera for your imagination. And that really resonated with me, because when photography was invented, there was a whole outcry in the artist community that like painters were going to be rendered obsolete, and like and artists were going to be replaced, and that's not what happened, right? You don't like a photograph is quite different from a painting, and we judge them quite differently in our society, and there's room for both, right? And so I'm actually really excited to see the intersection of AI, storytelling, IP, and digital ownership. Because to me, like, one thing that's really clear is we are all part of the last generations to grow up without digital ownership from day one. And
yeah.
so future generations are going to grow up owning things digitally, owning things physically, and they're not going to have the same hangups as we do. They're not going to be talking about right click save. They're not going to be like, how do I hang this on my wall? They're not going to they're going to accept these things for their own unique strengths and appeals. And we're already seeing that with the younger generations, with Gen Z, right? With Roblox, with Fortnite, like, they already get it. They get it better than most do. But like, where we're going is clear. Digital ownership is going to become a cultural constant. And I think that, but like the ways in which AI gets kind of like threaded into everyday life and our work processes and our life processes, is also gonna follow a similar trajectory, where like we're gonna be, it's gonna, at some point, it's gonna be hard to imagine a time before we had AI and digital assistants. And so things move really quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's quite a lot of worry about it right now, but I think a lot of it stems from thinking of it in the sense of scarcity, whereas we could think of it in terms of the abundance that it can create, and we can create entirely new industries. But on the other hand, there are some real concerns. Before I got into blockchain, I wrote about AI, and I talked about AI in conferences all around the world. In 2019, I wrote a book about the future of work, and it was all about AI. So I was like working on AI way before started talking about blockchain in as depth. But then at that time, people were less interested in it, and now it's all come back, and now everybody's interested in it. I think that there are a lot of opportunities here, but we don't want this podcast to be entirely about AI. So tell me a little bit about your background. So you worked in NGOs before. I also worked in NGOs. Which NGOs did you work in?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So I worked for an NGO called Search for Common Ground.
Nice.
They're a global conflict resolution and peace building NGO. I think based out of DC and Brussels, but they work in more than like 30, 35 countries. Yeah, I was actually working for Search for Common Ground in Nigeria. I was living in Jos, where the Muslim North meets the Christian South, and I was doing research into security sector human rights abuse.
So
And
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I worked for United Nations.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and also for international organization for migration, and we were helping at the time when there was the Afghanistan first presidential election. We were helping them with kind of getting their head around the idea of voting and democracy, which was really ironic because I come from Iran, and Iran is a dictatorship, and and I was working for United Nations, trying to help these guys with a democracy, and I was like, just the irony of that, was not lost on me. But okay, so how did you find your way from NGOs into the NFT space?
It's a great question. I always say the best career paths are nonlinear, and mine certainly qualifies. Long story short, so I had studied journalism at Northwestern. I was doing back-to-back law and master's degrees at George Washington University, focused on international law, international conflict resolution, international human rights, and that whole time as well, I've always been very much like a focus on like the music space. Like I was in bands growing up. I started DJing in college. And so I was writing for a lot of like music publications and blogs on the side for fun, and everything kind of came to a head my final year in 2013. When I was finishing up my last semester at George Washington with back-to-back exchange programs, and I was in Milan at Bocconi for the law side, and then I was in Berlin at Freie Universität for the masters. And it was very cold in Italy. I don't speak very great, and my Italian's not so great. So I was spending a lot of time online, and I was on Reddit, and I stumbled upon this thing called Bitcoin, and read the white paper. Thought it was really fascinating, sent it to all my friends. I was like, this is the future of finance. Bought a couple, and then 2 days later, it like all crashed. I bought the exact top of the market, but I held on to them because I believed in the promise of the technology, and I thought it was really interesting. A little bit of foreshadowing, right? So then during my time in Berlin, I actually I'd been writing about dance, electronic music, and it actually it attracted the attention of Billboard. And so Billboard, the massive, obviously, music publication, they reached out, and I started contributing to Billboard, writing about dance and electronic music, started covering a lot of the big festivals in Europe. And I saw this like open lane because dance electronic music was disrupting, just it was taking over America. It'd obviously been huge in Europe and South America for a long time, but like this wave was really big. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go start Billboard Dance. And so I got my degrees in the mail. Never took the bar. Moved to New York, and founded Billboard Dance. Joined Billboard full time in 2015. Built that into pretty much the leader in the space for certainly for North America in terms of dance electronic music media. And what's interesting is the peak years at Billboard Dance coincided with the next bull run. And so from 2016 2018, all of a sudden, crypto is back in people's attention. People are talking about it. My friends are showing me Ethereum and all that. And I realized I was the only person at Billboard who owned crypto or understood it at all. So I started doing some coverage around the intersection of music and blockchain because I thought that was really interesting. And a lot of the artists that were really pushing the space forward were good friends of mine. Artists like Blau, RAC, Miha, and others who were like really active in the crypto space. And so I started doing a lot of coverage there with music and blockchain. I advised on a project for Blau on a tokenized like music festival. I did a bunch of panels with RAC at South by. Spoke at Consensus Ethereal. I was really focused on like how can this technology empower like a better empower musicians and power a better music model. Because I was really thinking about it into the music industry framework. And what's funny is I think NFTs were kind of the missing puzzle piece there. And so fast forward a little bit after Billboard, I ran Spin Magazine as editor-in-chief. I exited with the sale of Spin at the top of 2020. And then, COVID hit. I was spending an inordinate amount of time on Clubhouse while also running content at Modern Luxury, the lifestyle publisher, when Blau actually was the one to pull me down the NFT rabbit hole in like fall 2020. And it all kind of clicked for me because I was like, this is a technology I've believed in for a very long time. Finally disrupting the fields I'm actually passionate about, like art and music and culture, because I'm not a finance guy at the end of the day. And critically, there's the potential for this technology to empower artists and to empower creators who have long been disenfranchised, marginalized, exploited, taken advantage of in traditional industry hierarchies and the like, whether it's the traditional art world, whether it's the music industry, whatever, wherever you go. And I became obsessed with this world, and I was ravenous, trying to learn as much as I could. And what I found was there was a lack of really credible resources. A lot of, at that time, end of 2020, we were looking to share resources about NFTs because just like the Bitcoin white paper, I was trying to share it with everyone. I was like, this is going to change everything, And a lot of what I was finding were like NFT platforms who were just writing content as a means of like kind of promoting their own drops and that. And then there were like a lot of talking head influencers on Twitter who were like more interested in shilling their own bags than pushing things forward. And I was like, there's a clear need in this space for an independent, credible publication that is also Web3 native and applying all of these amazing technological developments and potential around community-centric models in the media landscape. And so I was like, how do we pioneer how do we pioneer a new media model employing Web3? And so it all came together. I co-founded NFT Now with my co-founders Alejandro and Sam. We started the accounts in January of 2021. We all made the full-time jump in June of 2021, and it's been a very wild ride since.
Amazing. That's such a great story. We have so much in common. I used to also be, not writing about music, but I was in a death metal band.
No way. I love that.
Yeah. And I also
definitely went through my death metal phase. Like, I love
did?
that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was in a death metal band. We did really well. We played to, in festivals to 2,000 people. And
I love that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I also have 2 masters in political science and philosophy of science and technology, and so there's quite a lot of overlap there. So politics and international law and music. Yeah, so it all makes sense, and it makes sense why you're interested in this. And I think there is quite a lot of interesting things that can be done with this digital ownership for artists. There is a new artist that I've discovered that I'm just obsessed with. This guy, you have to check him out. His name is Ren. Just go to YouTube and put in Hi Ren, and yeah, and oh my god, I mean, you know what we should do? Maybe let's do it. Don't check it out. Let's maybe at the end of this podcast, if we have time, maybe we could do it. So basically, there are a lot of videos of people reacting to Hiren, and there are people who are seeing it for the first time. and I would love to, maybe let's do that together. See
Down.
if you
Yeah,
have
let's
time,
go.
right? Like that could be so much
Oh,
fun because
100%.
oh my God, like the first time when I watched Ren, the first time I was like, what is this? Like I didn't quite like I hit in the middle of the song somehow, randomly, YouTube showed it to me. And then uh I started watching the thing from the beginning, and I was like this, like honestly, like that. That's why there's so many reactions to this song and to this musician, and there's so many things he talks about that are the daily struggles of a creator, that not just about a musician but just any creator. That imposter syndrome, that the things that that the industry being cutthroat, and I have never seen an artist talk about the struggles of a creator is so candidly the way that he talks about. And every time I look at it, I'm like, oh man, I wish somebody would tell this guy about NFTs. Like he would kill it,
Yeah.
like he would just, like, he would never need uh any record label. He would never, like, he's gonna kill it. I mean, this guy is so incredibly talented, and I just think that just we need to just unleash this technology for those creators, and I just think that it's going to unlock. I mean, you're talking about being worried about AI. Like, there's so many other things that are holding people back. Like uh, the struggles of trying to get picked by a record label. To be able to make a living as a musician, to make a living as an artist, as a creator. This technology, it opens up that whole space. Of course, it's got its own issues. There are lots of things that we need to still figure out. There's problem, for example, now with recurring revenue. How do you create recurring revenue? There's and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, actually, with a whole conversation around royalties. I think royalties was never a great model anyway, because you're basically benefiting from people leaving your community. So we need to figure out a way. So what I've been recently thinking a lot about is that, how in Web 2, let's say you buy a service. Let's say you buy Adobe, and they give you a month free, and then after that, or they give you a month free plus 3 months cheaper, and then over time it keeps increasing, and they make it more expensive. What if NFTs enabled us to have a different model where you would buy the thing, and then after that you would pay a very small amount to maintain it, right? So it's like a reverse membership, right? That it makes sense more for that. So like, if you have this NFT, we are going to test this out. So for example, if you have our Genesis pass, you can create your own channel on our platform, and then eventually, when there is a payment, because eventually we need to be able to, it costs us quite a lot to run that, but then the Genesis holders will get a really steep discount, so because they have that pass, they will get a steep discount in maintaining that service, right? So yeah, so would love to hear your thoughts on what are some of the ways that you see we can innovate in this space, to be able to create recurring revenues for creators, for artists, without having to rely on this weird royalty model that is there right now.
Yeah, I'll say this. As NFT now, our mission is to empower the creators of culture and to bring this technology from niche to mainstream. So we've always sided with the creators on the royalty debate. We do believe that that royalties were a great feature, and still are a great feature for artists and for creators to share in the value of their works in perpetuity. Unfortunately, they can't be enforced, at a contract level. And so what you find is that it really has to be almost like a cultural choice and almost like an opt-in choice. And so what we are seeing is like certain ecosystems and marketplaces that exist where those royalties are enforced. Like, you know, the 10% on super rare has been a mainstay of crypto art for a long time. Yes, someone can go sell that on that token on, you know, OpenSea now or Blur without respecting the royalties. But artists and collectors in that space kind of pride themselves on being a part of that culture and on respecting that. And so I do think that for niche markets in certain areas, royalties will still exist and make sense for artists. The one thing is like we just can't like the developments over the past few months have showed that like both artists and creators of projects can't rely on the royalty stream as like their chief revenue. And that opens up, you know, that makes it a little less straightforward, because during the bull market, for example, many of these community-based projects, some of them being the PFPs and the like, were raking in a ton of revenue from the royalties, right? And so it became a very, you know, like the value prop was a little more straightforward in terms of like, get your floor price up, get sales volume up by generating excitement, by creating value, and then you get to share in that value that you create because you have a piece of it. Now it's a little bit more of a complex market dynamic to navigate, right? And so the best projects I'm seeing are the ones that are not relying on royalties to be their chief revenue stream, because that is no longer reliable, right? And so what's interesting is we're seeing a lot of projects start to expand you know, their purview, start to pursue new revenue streams. And there's a bit of a disconnect between this revenue stream driving value back to those original holders, right? Like we've seen this with a few projects where like certain moves with IP and licensing and things like that actually have a ton of potential to drive revenue to the company, don't necessarily serve the interests of those who are thinking more short term in terms of like, what's the floor price, right? And so I think that a lot of projects are going to need to move past that kind of thinking. One thing I think that's interesting, though, too, is that there are ways to actually do like what you were saying, where you can own an NFT that represents your membership, and then you can do almost like subscription micropayments attached to it. That exists, you know, that technology capability exists, and it can, and I see more development in it like as we go. Where I do think that there's going to be models where by owning an NFT, you can then continue to renew and opt in on the regular. And as long as you're continuing to create value for that community, it's almost like a Web3 version of the subscription model, and definitely something that we're looking at and you know, are cognizant of. And I think that like one of the things that we're seeing is that so much of the Web2 space was built on monetizing around engagement and like these big spikes in attention, right? And what people were neglecting was retention. And I think retention is the real name of the game in Web3. Like what we're doing, when I think about what we're doing and, you know, the community we're building around the Now Pass for the Now Network, it's like, we want to super serve a community. Like we really believe that, for example, media companies shouldn't be serving you advertisements. They should be serving you opportunities. And we think about the amazing network that we have at our fingertips, some of the leading artists in the space, some incredible brands and builders and the like. There's no shortage of incredible partnership opportunities and the like that we can help facilitate and you know, provide value in that way. And so it's about really changing, at least in the media like sense, it's also about changing, you know, the expectations around like the discourse and the almost dynamics of the relationship that have existed for a long time. I always say like Web 2 is all about audience, Web 3 is all about community. And what does that mean? Like Web 2 was all about building audience as a means to an end to monetize indirectly as a middleman for brands. And we saw that with programmatic advertisement, which we're hoping to leave that in Web 2 when it comes to media. We don't use it on NFT now, and we actually believe it's led to misaligned incentives and this whole clickbait race to the bottom that has really plagued the media space. And we've also seen this audience model with in Web 2 with like individual creators doing brand partnerships based on like the followings they've built on social media, you know, the influencer model. But that's a likes and comments economy. And now we have a digital asset economy. And so to me, what's really exciting is Web3 is about building community. And in Web3, you're essentially building community as an end in itself. And you can directly monetize by creating value for that community and creating a reason for them to keep showing up for you. I always say Web3 rewards those who show up, and Web3 rewards participation. And so as we think about that dynamic, it goes from being like a one-way street of exchange to being even beyond a two-way street of exchange. It's a whole roundabout where like communities are where creators and their communities are actually creating value together, generating like offshoots, like community created IP, all of these things that actually continue to drive value back to that core. And it's an incredibly powerful dynamic because audience, is aware that you exist, but community actually wants to see you win. And in Web3, community actually has a vested interest in seeing you do so. They often have a financial stake in seeing you do so because they're invested in your project. And so that's really powerful because that unlocks a different level of engagement, unlocks a different level of fandom and ambassadorship. Like you go from being a passive scroller in a feed to someone who actually wants to share NFT Now's content. And some of the things that we have coming, we're actually gonna be able to reward people for doing so, reward our community members. It's the difference between being a fan and a shareholder. It's the difference between being a supporter and an ambassador. And I think that that's the real power. That's the real power that is unlocked and the potential that is unlocked by Web3 technology. And I think as the technology will always continue to develop and impact how exactly those business models are transacted and the like, but it's going to be those projects and those creators who successfully build community around what they're doing and consistently create value for that community that are going to have the retention that is necessary to succeed in Web3.
That's true. But we also need to be careful that we don't paint too much of a rosy picture here, because there is the fact that it does become overly financialized, and the same community that can take you up, they can bring you down. We have seen it. One of the things that I've noticed quite a lot is that sometimes, and I posted about this some time ago on my Twitter, I was like, sometimes it feels like it's a little bit like dating, the relationship between the holders and the community. It's a bit like dating because everybody's very excited in the beginning and then it goes downhill, and it's impossible, to in a market where there are not many new people coming in. There are too many assets. It's just a simple supply and demand, right? There are too many assets and not enough buyers, and therefore people are moving money from one project to another, and therefore every time there's a new project there's a pump, and then afterwards the price comes down, and it's constantly happening. I remember in the bull market, every time there was a new project, people were killing themselves to mint, because they knew that the price would go up. The mint price was always the low price, and then after that the price would go up. But now you can't mint at anything. Like even the best projects, and I won't name names, but even the best projects that I'm looking at that are really going out there, really marketing, they mint, and then the price goes below the mint. And I always think that the truth is that first of all, I don't quite understand this idea of I buy this thing and I use that service or whatever it is, and I still want to make money on top of it as well. It's kind of like saying, that I buy a membership to LinkedIn, and I use it, and I want the price of my membership to also go up so that I also make money on it. So I don't quite get that, so there are a lot of things that are not quite worked out. We need to work these things out, because we have to, like you said earlier, we're currently giving the name of NFT to everything. A membership is an NFT, art is an NFT, a collectible is an NFT, and therefore we are applying the same business model to all of them, and that doesn't work. There are certain things that need recurring revenue. There are certain things that are more of a speculative asset. So let's so take me through your thinking around that side of things as well. What are your thoughts on the fact that there's also a part of this that's not quite sustainable, and what are some of the ways that you think we could overcome those?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's just a natural part of any new technology. Like, we've seen the speculative nature in the crypto world for a long time, right? It's only natural that with this being so nascent, that there would be a lot of that here too. And what's interesting is I think, as I said, as more people come into the space, as this space develops, as the markets mature, as people realize that different categories have different consumer and creative priorities, the things will settle into place, right? Like a lot of the people who are currently, active in the NFT space, in Web 2 and before would have been in casinos, not in like Sotheby's buying fine art, right? And that's okay. There's room for that speculation. In fact, the flippers and the speculators, like, they provide essential liquidity to the markets and the like. So, like, I don't talk down on them or anything. It's just they have a different reason for being there,
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that from, like, my own perspective, having just launched, going through the launch of the Now Pass, that's one of the things we made really clear is that the Now network, which is, the Now Pass is your access pass to the Now network, and the Now network is where, we're building that foundation for the future of tokenized media, and that's where all the opportunities and the like come in. The Now network will be built over time, not overnight. We made that really clear, right? We're thinking in terms of decades. It's not short-term thinking. We have a saying at NFT Now: play long-term games with long-term people. And so, when short-term speculators exit the community, they're on to the next opportunity. They're on to the next flip. That's okay. They're like, we wish them well, but we're not building for them, right? We're
Yeah.
building for the people who are the believers, the people who are rocking with us, bull or bear, boom or bust, and the like. And those are the communities, values-based communities, that are going to last. Because it's really easy to espouse community during a bull market when everything's rising. But if the only thing that you're rallying around is number going up, you don't actually have anything to stand on once the markets turn. And the markets always turn. You're never, like, when you're up, you're never as high as you think you are, and when you're down, you're never as low as you think you are. There's always, it's the nature of these cyclical markets. And so what's interesting there is, I think one of the reasons now we're in a bear market right now. We're in a clear bear market right now. We suffered some major shocks to the system with FTX and all these things, and it shook out a lot of the bad actors. It shook out a lot of the the scammers and the people there for the quick buck. But the people who are still trying to trade in a bear market, they, like you said, there aren't a ton of new people coming in on the daily right now. So it's a lot of the same people passing around a lot of the same projects. It's like a game of hot potato. And so when something mints and it goes up, there's like usually a window. If you're trying to flip, that's that window. Obviously not financial advice, but, like, I think that, that's why we see projects that launch in the bear oftentimes dip below mint price eventually, just because there's a certain contingent who weren't in it for the long term at all. They were always looking for the quick flip, and they're going to get their liquidity back one way or another because they need that liquidity to go try and make another. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's a natural part of the market. Is it ideal? No. I always say that, like, with NFTs, they're almost like publicly traded startups, right? So, like, the floor price can, imagine that if startups, like, if you could see their valuations on a real-time updating board
Yeah.
and all that, and it was going 24/7 and all that. I mean, that's like, it's not always ideal when you need to put, kind of hunker down and build and not be distracted. But I think that we have seen the emergence of values-based communities, and values-based communities are the ones that are going to last. And there will always be a certain element of, like, speculation that's just in the space, but it's the values-based communities that are going to have long-term legs. And so a lot of people ask us, they're like, why did you launch the Now Pass
Yeah, I
during
was going to
a
ask
bear
you that.
market.
That was exactly going to be my next
Yeah.
question. So tell me more about the Now Pass and why did
Yes.
you launch it?
Yeah. So the Now Pass is the access pass, the membership pass to the NFT Now ecosystem, also called the Now Network. And the Now Network is the foundation for all of our initiatives to pioneer a community-centric media model and build the future of tokenized media. And so the Now Pass launched a little under a month ago, March 23rd, I believe. We minted out over the course of 48 hours, which is a great achievement, in the depths of a bear market. And we're really excited and really happy about the community that's come together there. And so one of the things people ask is like, why did we launch then? They're like, oh, if you had, if you had launched during a bull, you would have made more, or like blah blah blah. And we're like, it's not about that. Think about it this way. Remember, I talked about the difference between audience and community. I talked about the Web 2 model and the Web 3 model. As we apply the Web 3 model to media, which is something that we've thought long and hard about, we spent 2 years in this space building credibility, building trust, uplifting artistry before we ever launched our own NFT. Because we wanted to do something that's never been done in terms of like an absolutely dynamic membership pass that has interactive generative art, like levels to the game, amazing dynamics and like evolution to like. And we also recognized that we would be super serving a community. There are 2,750 Now Passes, and we want to be able to show up and create value for everyone who holds one. And so if I'm going to be putting my blood, sweat, and tears into super serving a community, you better believe I want it to be the real ones. I want it to be the ones who believe in the future of the space. I want it to be the ones who believe in this technology. I want it to be the ones who have the faith in us and our vision for the long-term future of tokenized media, that they're going to be able to weather the ups and downs. They're going to be able to, not panic when crypto drops and floor prices plummet and the like. That's the kind of community we want to build. And so I actually am very happy that we launched when we did, because I always say that the bear market is for builders. During the bull market, there's a lot of shiny objects. There's a lot of noise, all that. The people who are still here showing up each and every day are the ones who really believe, are the ones who are usually in this for the right reasons, and the ones who are also building all of the infrastructure that is going to power the future. And those are the people we want to serve with the Now Network. And so there's some really, really exciting things. I mean, I can go deeper into some of the levels of utility around the Now Network.
Yes, please. Yeah,
yes.
tell me exactly what are people getting with that
Yes.
pass, and what happens on a day-to-day basis.
100%. So as we said, Now Network will be built over time, not overnight. But essentially, like what we've really like come down to is this concept of being the signal in the noise. It's something that it's like an internal mantra that we say at NFT Now. The artwork, the generative artwork, which was created by our amazing CTO and creative director, Aaron Baker, was actually inspired by that concept of being the signal in the noise. And fun thing that we can actually like beam messages into the metadata directly. We do this from time to time. And if you go on like nowpass.xyz, you can actually like get that message. And that's a message we can send to our community without having to navigate any algorithms or centralized platforms and the like. And so that's a really like fun bit. But what the value prop and the utility around the Now Network, for which the Now Pass is the access pass too, is really around sharing that value of being that signal in the noise with our community at large. So like, what does that mean? It means exclusive access to our events, both IRL and virtual. And we actually just did our first step in that regard. As I mentioned in New York, we have the NFT 100, which is our flagship editorial franchise, recognizing the 100 most influential creators and community figures. And we do the gala at the Rainbow Room. Well, we had a special allotment of tickets to the gala reserved for Now Pass holders. And one of the things that we do is we like to reward participation. You're going to find that that's a big theme when it comes to like building out these tokenized communities around media. And so we actually also opened up the nominations process. So in order to nominate candidates for the for the NFT 100, we had that process exclusively for Now Pass holders. And so Now Pass holders who nominated candidates could also indicate whether they would be in town or in New York on that date, and whether they were interested in coming. And then we were able to select a fortunate group of Now Pass holders to attend what is like, one of the most special events that we do. And we also did a Now Pass community event the next day to make sure that everyone of our community had a chance to get together and share in that value and all that and experience that. So events are a big side of it. And we do a lot of big events. We had the Gateway is like our flagship. It was a 5-day Web3 arts and culture festival we did during Miami Basel in December. And there's actually a lot of international interest around bringing the Gateway elsewhere. And so we took over, but this was a big undertaking. We took over 2 city blocks, 12 buildings, turned the historic DuPont Bank building into a massive audiovisual gallery, had some of the leading speakers and performers. And so we're continually to really like bridge the gap between the URL and IRL for community, and all Now Pass holders will always get the like white glove treatment, the exclusive access there. We're also building out a lot of exclusive content. So like Now Pass holders will get a first look at information and insights that they won't be able to find anywhere else. These can be like data deep dives, data reports, insights and analysis. The alpha, if you know what I mean, like, and so that's going to be really special. We're building out a whole membership portal where Now Pass holders and are going to be able to access there. Then stuff like, obviously we're going to leverage our relationships in the space to, be able to offer like signups for allow lists and things like that, and different projects and participation in projects that we think are worthwhile. But where it really gets exciting is where we start to talk about how we can empower our community to co-create content with us and to be co-creators in the stories that are being told. So one thing that I think is really exciting is involving the Now Pass holders in the selection process or the nomination process for the NFT 100 is just the beginning. So we are going to be transitioning a number of our most popular content series to community curated, token curated registries, the TCR model, with on-chain voting. The one that I think is first in line that we're really excited about is Next Up. And so Next Up is a series that's really close to my heart. We actually, at the end of 2021, we did something that very few Web2 media companies do. We asked our community what we could be doing better, and we heard it loud and clear. People were like, hey, you guys do a great job of covering established artists, but rising artists need love too. And so we launched Next Up in January of 2022, showcasing 22 rising artists to keep an eye on. And it's funny, if you look at the names now, you're like, these aren't rising artists. It's Diana Sinclair and Drift and Alpha Centauri Kid, but they were back then. And it's amazing when we look at what each of the artists we chose in that inaugural one have gone on to do. And so we actually turned it into a monthly series where we select 5 artists every month. But right now, it's a pretty centralized process for doing so, right? Like, I meet with the editorial team. We put together candidates. We weigh different factors, and we come up with 5 art creators that we want to showcase. But ultimately, we didn't get into this space to be the new gatekeepers. Web3 is all about bypassing traditional gatekeeping and hierarchies that have existed in Web2. So we want to open that up to the community, where the community is going to be able to put forward the artists. Community is going to be able to vote in like those on-chain voting and the like. And critically, the community will be rewarded for doing so. So one of the things that's going to drive the Now network is, and within this membership portal and the like, is you're actually going to be able to earn experience points, like XP points, in response to engaging with our content, sharing our content, contributing to NFT Now, participating in these different like community curated content series and the like. And then you'll be able to exchange those XP points for different rewards. We're looking at systems like Amex, like Delta Sky Miles, how they have been able to leverage their standing across many different categories, many different verticals, and many different disciplines to create consistent value for their members. And so we're going to be doing that, operating from a Web3 media perspective. And there's some really exciting partnerships and like initiatives in the works there. And then finally, there's actually a lot more, but what I can speak to, Arian, who I mentioned, did all the artwork and is our CTO. He's building out within this membership portal these different specialized products to help different segments succeed in Web3. So one thing we also recognize is that we have amazing creators in our community. We have amazing builders in our community. We have founders. We have collectors. We have traders. We have degens. You know, we've got people from big brands who are interested in how does my brand get in here. We have these different segments, and while it's still all one community, we recognize that success in Web3 doesn't always look the same to everyone. And we have an amazing network at play where we're going to be able to, for example, connect the dots to empower creators who hold the Now Pass to be able to be in line for amazing opportunities, whether it's with the major auction houses that we work with, or, big brand partnerships or the like. We're going to be able to provide resources for builders. We're going to be able to give timely information for collectors, and traders. And so we start to build out these sort of different areas where you can almost like choose your own adventure within the Now network. And we know a lot of people wear multiple hats, so it's not like an either or, so there's a lot. There's some really exciting things. I think what we're also looking at, which is really exciting to me, is as we think about tokenized media, there's the tokenization of media, and then there's the tokenization of communities around media, right? And so as we think about also the tokenization of media, like we're always looking to what can we do with big content moments, with big content partnerships, with big stories, big features, big releases that can also be tokenized and used to reward our community. Like I think about, for example, a digital cover story where that cover is a one-of-one artwork by the artist we're featuring, and maybe we tokenize that and auction that off with revenue share. But what we can also do is maybe we have all the blueprints for that piece of work, all the like behind the scenes stuff, maybe the early schematics stuff. We tokenize all that and airdrop that to the Now Pass holders, and so like having the Now Pass holders continually be rewarded through some of the amazing like initiatives that we're doing with both artists and big projects in the space. And so there's a lot of exciting stuff in the works there at the intersection there. And then, I also just want to mention it while we're on the topic of tokenized media. We also see the element, a really important element, like we talked about skating to where the puck is going. We saw a really important element around tokenizing media for the on-chain provenance, for being able to know that this came from a trusted source. One thing that we saw, we'd been saying that it was going to happen for a long time. When those AI generated photos of Trump being arrested went viral and many people thought that they were real, that is an indicator of what's to come. Because AI is not going to be, it's never going to be more crude and unsophisticated than it is right now. It is only going to get better. It is only going to get more realistic. And the deep fakes, the misinformation, the disinformation that's going to be possible with it is only going to get more sophisticated and believable. And so there's another element to building the future of tokenized media, which is also tokenizing media so that you know where it came from. You're able to see that on-chain provenance. You're able to say, did this come from a trusted source? Did this come from a trusted outlet? Who created this? Which is going to be incredibly important. So there's a lot more to dive into, and a ton more in terms of what we have planned for the Now Pass community.
That's very exciting. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I think we covered quite a lot, and I just have to get more involved and learn more for myself. I look forward to having you on the platform, learning more and just following your journey.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Matt Medved. Be sure to follow NFT Now on Twitter and explore their growing ecosystem. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe to it on Apple, Spotify, or any other one of your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to give the 5-star rating and write a review. The full interviews are also available on my YouTube channel, The Somi Arian Show.